Imagine a moment where the fate of an entire nation, its future for centuries, rests on the shoulders of just one man. As thousands of samurai clashed in a valley shrouded in mist, one general watched from the hills, his decision holding the power to forge a unified nation or fracture it into 1,000 warring states. Then came the signal, a sudden volley of cannon fire from the east, not aimed to kill, but to command. For Kobayakawa Hideaki, this was the moment of reckoning. His choice wouldn't just seal his fate, it would echo through centuries of Japanese history. This is the story of the battle that ended an age of war. A conflict decided not only by swords and strategy, but by a single seismic act of betrayal. This is the story of Sekigahara. To truly grasp the magnitude of Sekigahara, we must first understand the world that birthed it. At the dawn of the 17th century, Japan was not the unified, peaceful nation we know today. For over 100 years, it had been trapped in the brutal Sengoku, or Warring States period. This was an era of relentless civil war, shifting alliances and constant bloodshed, where powerful regional lords known as daimyo carved out their own domains and fought fiercely for supremacy. Life for the common people was precarious, marked by uncertainty and the constant threat of conflict. The dream of a unified Japan, free from endless strife, was a powerful aspiration, yet seemingly out of reach. This desperate need for stability set the stage for the rise of extraordinary figures who would attempt to bring order to the chaos. Before Sekigahara, three remarkable figures emerged, each playing a crucial role in the long, arduous process of unifying Japan. First, Oda Nobunaga, a brilliant and ruthless innovator, began the monumental task, breaking traditional power structures. His vision was cut short by betrayal, but his legacy inspired the next great unifier, Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi, a man of humble origins who rose through sheer talent and charisma, completed Nobunaga's work. He was a master strategist, both on the battlefield and in politics, unifying the fractured nation under a fragile peace. His rule brought a much-needed respite from war, but his greatest weakness was his inability to secure a stable succession. When Hideyoshi died in 1598, he left behind a 5-year-old son, Hideyori, and a dangerous power vacuum at the top. Hideyoshi, anticipating the challenges of his young heir, had formed a council of 5 elders to rule until his son came of age. However, ambition runs wild in power voids, and soon the council fractured. 2 dominant figures emerged, representing the 2 paths Japan could take. Their rivalry would ignite the flames of Sekigahara. On one side was Ishida Mitsunari, a brilliant administrator and fiercely loyal retainer to Hideyoshi's legacy. He wasn't a warrior by birth, but his intelligence and unwavering devotion earned him respect and resentment. Many samurai saw him as a pencil pusher in a warrior's world, lacking the battlefield prowess they admired. Still, Mitsunari rallied the daimyo of Western Japan, forming the Western Army, determined to protect young Hideyori and preserve the Toyotomi legacy. Opposing Mitsunari was Tokugawa Ieyasu, a seasoned tactician, immensely wealthy, and arguably the most powerful daimyo in the land. Ieyasu was a survivor, having patiently navigated decades of political intrigue and warfare. He had waited decades for this opportunity, carefully biding his time. While publicly loyal to the Toyotomi, behind the scenes he made calculated moves, marrying his children into rival clans, expanding his army, and building a vast network of alliances. Ieyasu wasn't just playing chess, he was building the entire board. The daimyo of Eastern Japan gravitated toward Ieyasu not just for power, but often because they distrusted Mitsunari's rigid personality and administrative style. Lines were drawn, armies were raised. The fate of Japan now hung precariously in the balance, poised on the brink of another devastating conflict. Tokugawa Ieyasu embodied everything the samurai idealized: stoic, patient, and strategically brilliant. He had outlived almost all of Japan's other unifiers, not by strength alone, but by mastering the art of survival and understanding human nature. He believed loyalty could be bought, that fear and reward were more binding than abstract notions of honor. To his followers, he promised peace through dominance. To his enemies, he was a shadow creeping closer with every calculated move. Opposite him stood Ishida Mitsunari, brilliant, devout, but inflexible. His loyalty to Hideyoshi and his son was unshakable, a moral compass in a world of shifting allegiances. But he had a critical flaw. He saw the world in absolutes. You were either loyal or you were the enemy. He lacked the charisma, the battlefield reputation, and most importantly, the political finesse to lead an army of proud, power-hungry samurai. Many obeyed him reluctantly, finding themselves answering to a man they neither fully trusted nor admired. Mitsunari believed in honor. Ieyasu believed in leverage. And when ideals collide with ambition, one side always breaks. And in the center of this brewing storm stood Kobayakawa Hideaki, a young, ambitious, and dangerously insecure daimyo. He had once been a rising star in Hideyoshi's court, commanding 15,000 samurai. But during the Korean campaign, he led a reckless charge that, while successful, earned him a stinging rebuke from Hideyoshi himself. The scolding wasn't just personal, it was political, and Hideaki blamed Mitsunari, believing him to be the puppet master behind his disgrace. This wasn't just military drama, it was personal humiliation that festered. Ieyasu, ever the opportunist, saw an opening. He promised Hideaki land, power, and respect if he switched sides at the critical moment. Mitsunari, desperate to hold his fractured alliance together, countered with promises of his own, some even say offering Hideaki the prestigious title of Kampaku Imperial Regent. Caught between the weight of legacy and the burning desire for vengeance, Hideaki reluctantly agreed to join the Western army. But his heart was full of doubt. He positioned his men atop Mount Matsuo, 15,000 warriors overlooking the entire battlefield. From this vantage point, he held the power to tip the scales toward either side. The fate of Japan would be shaped by his betrayal or his loyalty. The night of October 19, 1600, a heavy downpour drenched the valley of Sekigahara. By dawn, the valley was shrouded in a thick, eerie fog. It was as if the gods themselves veiled the field of destiny, hiding the horrors that were about to unfold. Around 160,000 samurai gathered, the Western Army versus the Eastern Army, in what would become the largest and most decisive battle in Japanese history. Mitsunari had the terrain advantage. His forces surrounded the valley in an L-shaped formation, designed to crush Ieyasu's troops in a devastating pincer movement. It looked flawless on paper, a perfect trap. But Ieyasu wasn't concerned with paper strategies alone. He had something stronger: deals, promises, and secrets. He bet everything on human weakness, on the wavering loyalties of men. And as the fog began to lift, slowly, ominously, so did the veil of deception. As the morning haze finally lifted, a deafening roar cut through the mist. Unamasa, one of Ieyasu's fiercest generals, charged forward with his crimson-armored troops, the infamous Red Devils. Their objective, to break the center of the Western Army. Steel clashed, muskets flared, and the valley erupted into pure, unadulterated chaos. The air filled with the screams of men, the clang of metal, and the acrid smell of gunpowder. On the western side, warriors like Otani Yoshitsugu and Shimasa Kon held firm, fighting with incredible valor. These men weren't just fighting for their lives. They were dying for loyalty, for the legacy of Hideyoshi, and for the dream of a unified Japan under his young son. The clash dragged on for hours, a brutal, grinding struggle. Both sides suffered tremendous losses, the ground becoming slick with blood. But amidst the blood and thunder, one crucial front remained eerily silent: Mount Matsuo. Kobayakawa Hideaki watched and waited. His 15,000 men stood still, a silent, imposing force overlooking the carnage below. Ieyasu grew increasingly impatient, sending messenger after messenger urging Hideaki to move, to fulfill his promise. But Hideaki hesitated, paralyzed by doubt. Could this be a trap? Would switching sides make him a villain in history or a savior? He had the power to crush Ieyasu's flank, or to doom Mitsunari's forces, yet he did nothing, frozen by fear, pride, and the immense weight of history. Down in the valley, warriors bled and died while Hideaki stood motionless, caught in an agonizing internal struggle. Midday approached. The Eastern Army, despite its ferocity, began to falter under the relentless pressure. Ieyasu's patience finally snapped. He gave a chilling, decisive order: "Aim the cannons at Mount Matsuo, fire." The shots weren't intended to kill. They were meant to compel, to force a decision. It was no longer a suggestion, it was a direct command. Choose now. For Hideaki, it was a cannonball to the conscience, a thunderous wake-up call. The smoke curled skyward as his decision finally came crashing down. He turned to his commanders, his face a mask of grim resolve, and gave the order. His banners pivoted, and 15,000 men thundered down the hillside, not toward the Eastern Army, but directly into the heart of the Western flank. Otani Yoshitsugu, already locked in brutal combat, had feared this very betrayal. He had even placed men to guard against it, but they were no match for the sheer force of Hideaki's charge. Yoshitsugu's unit shattered, his defenses crumbled, and just like that, the tide of war broke irrevocably. Hideaki's betrayal opened the floodgates. Other Western commanders, many of whom had already been in secret talks with Ieyasu, saw their moment. They turned. Whole divisions switched sides mid-battle, their loyalties shifting with the wind. Samurai who had fought beside each other for years now raised blades against one another in a horrifying display of opportunism and desperation. It wasn't just a battlefield collapse, it was a psychological implosion. The Western army disintegrated from within, its carefully planned strategy crumbling into dust. Ishida Mitsunari stood helpless, watching his forces scatter, his dream of preserving Hideyoshi's legacy evaporating like ash in the wind. There was no saving it. Within 2 hours of Hideaki's devastating betrayal, the battle was over. By 2 p.m., Tokugawa Ieyasu stood victorious on the blood-soaked earth of Sekigahara. Over 30,000 bodies lay silent, a grim testament to the day's brutal cost. A nation's future had been written in crimson. In the days that followed, Ieyasu struck fast and without mercy. Mitsunari was captured and swiftly executed, his unwavering loyalty ultimately costing him his life. Other Toyotomi loyalists met similar fates, beheaded, disgraced, their names erased from power. Kobayakawa Hideaki, the architect of the decisive betrayal. He was rewarded richly, his lands expanded, his name elevated, but not for long. Within 2 years he was dead. Some say illness claimed him, others claim he was driven mad, haunted by the ghost of Otani Yoshitsugu, the man he betrayed. Whether guilt or poison, his meteoric rise ended as quickly as it began. And Ieyasu. He stood alone, the undisputed master of Japan. In 1603, the emperor bestowed upon him the title of shogun, the supreme military ruler of Japan. This marked the beginning of the Tokugawa shogunate, a dynasty that would last for over 250 years, ushering in an unprecedented era of peace and stability. The Warring States era was finally over, and it had all turned on the decision of one man at one pivotal moment. The Battle of Sekigahara wasn't just a clash of armies. It was a masterclass in ambition, loyalty, and the brutal cost of betrayal. It stands as a powerful reminder that history is often shaped not just by grand strategies, but by the deeply human choices of individuals, their fears, their desires, and their moments of weakness. A single hesitation, a single cannon shot, changed the course of history forever. The shot wasn't just heard on Mount Matsuo, it echoed across centuries, defining the very fabric of Japan. If this incredible story of power, betrayal, and destiny captivated you, then you're in the right place. Hit that like button to show your support, share this video with a fellow history enthusiast, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more untold legends and pivotal moments that shaped our world. Don't miss out on our next deep dive into history.